Welcome back to Earth Station Trek, a show where we trek from the early days on NBC to the future on Paramount Plus and everywhere in between. I'm Charles Kelso, and it's my privilege to introduce the Earth Station Trek crew: Keith Johnson.
Guys, we're going to have fun tonight. Get it done.
Alan Seiler.
Attention!
Veronica Dashel is dealing with a dog-related emergency, but until she gets back, we're also joined by a special guest tonight, Wayne Badie. Also, you may recognize from our comment sections, Tiger Blade 2002.
Tiger Blade 2002 in the house.
Welcome to the show, Wayne.
Thank you.
Woohoo!
Veronica.
Veronica.
Hi.
There she is. You can't start the show until you get hi.
That's right.
That sounds so wrong when you say it.
Gosh, and given the topic, I'm trying to think of commanders with these different intros. I'm seeing Veronica's the captain of the starship going, "Hi, everyone."
That's probably how I'd be like, "Hi guys, what are we doing today?"
Mm-hmm. Well, tonight we're going to be talking about the command styles and leadership styles of various Star Trek characters. And Wayne has agreed to join us and give us the benefit of his military experience in the conversation as well. But before we get to that, Keith, do we have some This Week in Trek this week?
We got some history.
All right.
Just a little bit. Whenever you hit the fall, there's always Star Trek history, and you can recycle the same old stuff. But I found a couple that.
Keith, you did something to your mic.
Okay, try again. Can you hear me now?
Better.
Perfect.
Weird. Okay, there's little gremlins going on. You guys still able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All right. 19th of October, 1961. Looks like we just kind of lost Alan, at least the video, but Alan may come in and out. But 1961 was the first day of filming on an episode that I thought was interesting because it was an interesting episode for the original series. One of the things we talked a lot about is silliness in the new Star Trek, primarily the musical shows and Strange New Worlds and so forth. Well, in 1961, this is the first day of filming of an original series episode.
Keith, you've done something to your mic again.
Okay.
Okay.
How's that? Better?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. I think there's something going on. If it is, I'll change mics. The October 19th, 1961 was the first day of filming of Shore Leave. Able to hear me?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Shore Leave is a good one.
Yeah, we talk so much about, and there's reasons for this. We've talked about. There's so many people who say that Star Trek should be serious and not funny.
Yeah, I think you need to change mics, Keith.
Okay.
Yes.
I really like Shore Leave. It was Theodore Sturgeon's first contribution to Star Trek, and then he obviously went on to do the Amok Time as well. But Shore Leave is a really good episode.
Yeah, it's serious, but it has a lot of humor. And I mean, it's an original series where, let's be honest, it starts out on planet with a giant white rabbit, or I guess a white rabbit or white hair,
Right.
running in and saying, "I'm late, I'm late." I mean, you can't get much sillier than that until Don Juan shows up, and until the samurai shows up, and all the other kind of fun stuff that goes on.
It was a white rabbit.
Okay.
White rabbit.
Mark's hair is later. In the
March here.
So, honest answers here. If that happened with Strange New Worlds, how many of us would complain about it?
Exactly.
Okay, Charles, you got me.
We'd be on here complaining about it, but go right ahead.
That's right up here with Elysium.
That's right. I'm going to call out my own hypocrisy where I can.
Yeah. But there's also another one. One of the cool things it established is another one of those many incredibly super advanced beings that the Enterprise encounters that kind of say, you don't know who we are. You kind of aren't ready to know who we are. Just enjoy it and leave. Because remember, they killed a couple of people. Like McCoy, he literally got pierced by a lance, and then they fixed him up, and he's like, "Hey, I'm fine. Things are good."
Right.
Great group of folks. This one is very interesting. Now let's jump forward a quarter of a century, 1987. I'm saying this for a reason. Same day, October 19th. That was the premiere of the TNG episode. This is one of my personally least liked, The Last Outpost. But I know everybody can tell us what the importance is of that. If Veronica, if you don't remember, that's that one where they, gosh, how do you describe it? It's the one where they went to the planet and this old dude came out and said he was like this guardian of this empire that used to be there. And it's the introduction of the Ferengi. I guess that's the only way I can go there.
I think that episode is actually pretty cool. I like I think, was it the Takan Empire?
Takan, right.
I thought he was kind of cool, but also, I mean, I kind of dig that first Ferengi episode. I kind of like the Ferengi with whips and fur coats.
With the laser whips. And I'm sure you guys know, I know Matt and Elaine would know this watching Deep Space Nine. I was just listening because I listened to the Delta Flyers, which is the podcast with Garrett Wong and Robert Duncan McNeil, and they have Terry Farrell and Armin Shimmerman on there because they're covering Deep Space Nine. And Armin Shimmerman just said in an episode I listened to again that he spent his entire career trying to make up for the Ferengi in that episode. He still said that. Like his entire Deep Space Nine career was to make up for what he felt was a horrible, horrible, horrible introduction. And he personally carries that guilt to this day. Isn't that wild?
Well, I disagree with him there. And I don't think he has anything to make up. You know what? He has something to make up for with that box he played in a later episode.
I was just about the same thing.
More so than the Ferengi.
Yeah.
Oh, I wish you guys could talk to him. If you told him that, I think that might make him feel a little better. That's pretty wild. Okay, let's jump forward just one day in time, but still we're in the 60s. 1966 was the premiere of, oh my God, I was trying to think of something really cool to say to give you a hint. Oh, okay. The Old Ones created you too, but it became
Old One.
That's it. Yes, that is the original series episode, What a Little Girl's Made Of.
I remember.
Yeah, that's it. And Veronica, I know you know why I remember. We all know the connection with Star Trek now with that one because that was the introduction of Roger Corby, the middle-aged man with white hair who was from America.
Or at least had an American accent.
Yeah.
Clearly, this robot was not programmed with his correct accent, and everyone else forgot his accent.
Right.
Yeah. There you go. Whoa. I never even thought of that.
He was an imperfect copy of Roger Corby.
There you go.
Mind blow. That is another classic Star Trek episode. It introduces these concepts that you see throughout, not just Star Trek, but all science fiction, which is a concept of the old ones, an old race. That's so much science fiction has that. Even the people who built the Guardian of Forever, we don't know who they were. It's also Stargate. Yeah, exactly. It's famous for the guy people know of as Lurch, Ted Cassidy, playing Ruck in my opinion, one of the best guest starring roles in Star Trek history. He is phenomenal in that episode. It introduced the concept of these androids, and I guess not for nothing, Shirley Jackson still tops the list of best looking women in Star Trek history because was that?
She was very memorable.
Yeah. How do you pronounce the last name? I always get them wrong. Andrew. Yeah. Was it Tice?
Who? Was it Tice? Yeah, Bill Tice.
Bill Tice. Yeah. With the costume for the 1966 was super daring on primetime television. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Just a really good episode.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that episode.
Me too.
And I mean, Ted Cassidy, it's hard to find someone in Star Trek with a better voice than Ted Cassidy.
Yes. Because wasn't he the voice of Baylock later on? Yeah, in the Corbomite maneuver.
That's right.
All right, moving forward real quick. This one I'll just say enough said and move on. Also on the 20th of October, 1967, 1 year later, was the debut of the Doomsday Machine. And what else can you say about it?
Classic.
Yeah. It tops the fan list of Star Trek episode that they would like to see most made into a movie from the original series, if a movie were made of it. And pretty much always competes with Amok Time and The Trouble with Tribbles as the favorite episode in the entire original series. There was an old thing, if you're old enough to remember, Nobody Doesn't Like Sarah Lee commercial. Nobody Doesn't Like Doomsday Machine. It's such a great episode.
Yeah, they're also delicious.
There you go. For those who old enough who know, I was reading some trivia recently that William Wyndham, who played Commodore Matt Decker, was not the first choice for Commodore Decker. It was the veteran actor Robert Ryan. Okay. And I'm sure you probably know who he was. I know, Wayne, you know who he was. He served the military in real life. And the author of that story and the screenplay and the showrunners all wrote that entire episode with Robert Ryan in mind to play Commodore Decker. And Robert Ryan was a huge Star Trek fan, really wanted to be on the show, but the scheduling couldn't work. So they got William Wyndham, and the writer of the story said, "Oh, now it's not going to be good because we got this guy instead of Robert Ryan." Wow. And the rest is history.
And I think it's worth pointing out too that William Wyndham reprised his role as Commodore Decker in a fan film in the early 2000s called In Harm's Way, where, as it turned out, in that universe, he had been thrown back in time and lived to be to old age in present day Earth, and had recorded a message. But it was just really great seeing William Wyndham sort of play Decker again on screen in that fan film.
Wow. Just a couple more real quick. When we talked about this one recently, but also 20th of October 1994 was the first day of filming of the DS9 episode Past Tense.
Oh.
We just talked about that. And you want to talk about prescient and on it. Of course, that's the one where they go back in time or come back to our time, and you have the sanctuary districts and people who don't have jobs or don't have homes or forced to live in these places. And well, let's just say it's awfully uncomfortable.
Familiar.
Yes, it's awfully uncomfortable to watch that thing right now.
Yeah, that's a Star Trek episode that I wish wasn't as pertinent to real life as it is.
Absolutely. And here's what I'm just going to run through this because this is funny. The 21st of October, get this. I'm just going to run through all these. 21st of October, 1991, the Star Trek episode Disaster, TNG premiered. Okay. 1994, first day of filming for, I don't know what that one is. 1997, first day of filming for DS9's Waltz. 1998, Take Me Out to the Holosuite premieres. 1994, 21 of October, Gene Roddenberry's ashes were put into space on the Space Shuttle Columbia. Wow. The reason I found that interesting, there's like 6 major things filming television shows and movies that all took place on October 21st, spanning something like 6 or 7 years. And of course, that was the heyday of all that stuff. The original series movies were being filmed. TNG was getting done. Then just a couple of years later, TNG was at the theater. Deep Space Nine was going, and Voyager was going. And wow, what a time that was.
Yeah, the mid to late 90s was a great time to be a Star Trek fan.
Absolutely. And I'd say it's a good time now. It's changed, but it's a good time now. With that, this week in Star Trek history.
Well, great. Well, thank you very much for that. Alan, do we want to grab some comments before we move on to our topic?
Yeah, we do.
I have a comment on a comment.
Okay.
Our buddy Mark says, Captain on deck.
Need that little whistle now.
Matt says, hello, guys. Welcome aboard, Wayne.
Hey, Matt.
Let's see. Matt also says, Keith needs his white sound device from court martial. And Elaine says that we would all be complaining about seeing White Rabbit and Strange New Worlds.
They totally mentioned bunnies in Subspace Rhapsody.
True.
Totally the same thing.
I thought you were going to say Buffy, but that's okay. Matt Sweatman says the Doomsday Machine was his top episode when he and Elaine did their recent rewatch of the original series. Not just best of season 2, but the best of the entire series.
Wow. Okay.
And that's a good pick.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course, we all know of another one that we might have picked that we know Matt would never have picked, but we'll leave that alone for right now.
A Taste of Armageddon is what he's talking about.
And our friend Bill is checking in. Hey, Bill, how's it going? And how's the comments?
Yeah, well, great to have everybody with us tonight. So yeah, tonight we're going to be talking about the various leadership styles of Star Trek characters, particularly the commanding officers that we see throughout Star Trek. And Wayne, I know that you've got actual military experience, which we do not have. So thank you very much for joining us. And you had sent us some additional information as well, sort of videos prior to the talk. But I mean, what really drew you to this conversation?
Well, basically, it was the argument about Starfleet being a military organization. Okay, for what they did, it's sort of like, when you're going out to the unknown with no way of defending yourself. And on top of that, I can't think of a better model to run the type of organization that Starfleet is, except a military organization, because that's the way it's set up. And for what their mission would be, especially when it came to defending the fleet against some hostile enemy, you're going to need that type of model to have people to do it. You can't think of anything else that'll work. I mean, you got to have people who are quick to respond and being able to follow order with very few questions, which is basically why it works.
Hmm.
And other than that, I can't think of anything else, that will work that in a military model.
Right. Yeah, you really need to have that structure
Right.
in crisis situations, right?
Uh-huh.
There doesn't need to be any question about who's in command and what the chain of command is, right? And so it all falls back, especially in, I mean, old Star Trek in particular, new Star Trek that tend to be in more like regular conversation with home base or like hanging around a home base. But in the old Star Trek, it was very often that you're out. Like, Captain Kirk, for instance, like may not get an answer for a week. He's got an hour to make a decision, right? So it very much falls on Captain Kirk to make that decision, and similar with Sisko and so forth.
And speaking of that thing, he's on a ship, and what he does is not unlike what they do on military ships nowadays. But to be more accurately, I guess more back in World War II, where they actually did have situations like that where they couldn't get back to you for several days or maybe even weeks before you get an answer, and you need to do it. He is basically, for no better, since no other word probably fits this, is he's God.
Right.
He's the last word.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking on, since we're doing, I want to talk about one of the first leadership styles they talk about. Let's just consider every captain on every ship uses an autocratic style of leadership to fall back on. In other words, he's got to be in a position where you can't question. You got to just snap to it and do it. And he expects to be obeyed. Let's just say that's the basic, when you're talking about that. He's also keeps his distance from the group, so he can't really be affected by anything. And then there are basically about 10 different styles of leadership that I was taught. Some of them can only be used in certain situations, like the democratic style leadership. It's usually used when you talk about a meeting between the leadership or whatever group. The smallest group we had in the Marine Corps was a fire team. The leadership was democratic. In other words, everybody was asked for their opinions and input. And then when you're talking about being on a ship, everything, all commands go through the boss, who literally supposed to know everything, and his style is beyond reproach.
Mm-hmm.
But in the way of one of my NCOIC, he says your stuff has to be as tight as a gnat's over a rain barrel.
Right.
So Wayne, what are all the different types of leadership? I know you mentioned like one or two, and of course my brain has already forgotten every single one you said. Autocratic. Autocratic was one of them.
Okay, autocratic means,
there we go. Yep. I got two.
Okay, autocratic is basically, I got them written down here. It's where he makes all decisions unilaterally. In other words, his word is the word, and he expects to be obeyed with very few questions. And you'll understand how important that is with, when, I don't know, somebody's shooting at you.
Yeah.
And, you say, well, why I got to do, no, that's, no, I'll shoot you in the face if you try to do that to me.
Let me ask a question. Would the reason I had thought about this topic a long time ago is because we talked about this several weeks or months ago, Charles. I can't remember when it was, where I was talking about how my feelings about Captain Jellicoe have changed over the years, which is really weird. Natively, people like him get on my nerves, and I still wouldn't want necessarily a boss like him. But as I've gotten older, I have come to see that Riker was acting a little bit like a spoiled brat, honestly. So, Wayne, two questions. Would you call Jellicoe an autocrat? And is that a bad command style?
Okay, well, let me tell you something. Now that we're into the subject of leadership style, there's a style that basically, allows you to switch between leadership styles. and which is what the military practices, in my opinion. It's called situational leadership style. In other words, you have to change it from whatever position, whatever whatever the situation calls for, an autocrat, or if you're in a meeting with your senior officers, that you're going to have to exchange ideas. So then we're talking about a democratic leadership style where you're sharing ideas. Let's see.
So Jellicoe would be kind of autocratic.
Yeah,
but justified because they were trying to avoid a war with Cardassians at the time.
Not only that, he's walked into a totally new group of people. And he doesn't know Joe from Mike. And so he's got to be, he's got to set up, his situations where everybody's going to be on the same page. So he's, in the beginning, that's why I don't think he gave him a fair break there, because he was put in a situation where he doesn't know anybody else, but he's got to take place of somebody else whose leadership style is probably totally different from his. And so, and he's got a short amount of time to get these guys squared away. So yeah, I'd have to say that's what the situation called for.
What do y'all think about him? We've talked about him before. What do you think about him in that case, that situation?
I like Jellicoe a lot. Now, I've never served in the military, but I've been in management positions with my day job for the last 12 years. I currently, day to day, I run a $2.3 million office with 18 team members who report to me every day. And one thing that strikes me about Jellicoe, though, is that he didn't try to adapt himself to his new command. He tried to adapt his new command to his style, right? So he immediately walked in the door and upset the apple cart for the 1,000 people who were on the Enterprise, rather than trying to get to know them and the culture of that ship. When I took over my current service center a year and a half ago, there was a lot of, I worked in 6.5 years in the Buckhead location, which, if you don't know Buckhead, it's a very well-to-do area in Atlanta. I'm currently out in West Georgia at a sort of small country branch. And so I've certainly had to adapt my own styles to the branch, because what I don't need now, I have an advantage, I think, that we're not in like life and peril situations every day. And also a disadvantage that anyone can just walk out whenever they want to. We're not on a starship in the middle of space, right? So there is the incentive on me to bring everybody along. Right. I do want to get everybody on board with the way I do things, but I would never have walked in the door the way Jellicoe did and changed the way everything happens, because I don't want a mass exodus. Right. I want to get everybody on board with the way I do things. But there is, I think, in the civilian world, at least, a bit of cajoling and meeting them in the middle and just picking your battles and bringing people to where you want to be over time, rather than walking in the door and issuing a bunch of commands and expecting everybody to snap to. And,
I also feel like the changes, just knowing things, the changes that you were trying to do in the positions you were trying to get in place were not going to completely upset the balance of everything, like 5 shifts instead of 4.
Okay. No. Have you guys said all of that? Let me point out something. It's different in the military.
Sure.
In other words, everybody understands, and there's everybody who's been trained and went through basic and all kinds of understands that. If he wants to walk in there and change things, he's quite. There's nothing wrong with that. In other words, everybody understands that.
Right.
So it is what it is, you're saying?
Well, theoretically, but not everyone on the Enterprise understood, because a lot of people on the Enterprise, Riker, for instance, who was a career Starfleet officer, had a very difficult time dealing with Jellicoe.
Exactly, and that's why he was dead wrong. Because, you're in a situation, especially as a first officer, because your job is, no matter what goes on, you have to back up the captain.
Right.
And he should know better. And his job is to get the troops in line to make sure that, his orders, his commands are going to be obeyed. And the way he went about it was wrong. The idea is, if you're going to do that, you take captain to the side, and you catch him in his ready room when he's off the side, never in front of the troops. That's why you have those big blowouts. If you've ever seen most military movies or everything like that, where you have this back and forth, and the captain gets fed up and says, this, or he says, you're relieved. Leave my squad bay, leave my my command center or whatever.
I noticed when Charles was talking about you kind of understood Jellicoe. Veronica was vehemently shaking her head no. What's your thoughts?
Who was that?
Veronica shaking her head no.
No. I mean, okay, so on one hand, I understand what Wayne's saying. On the other hand, I feel like Starfleet, in this case, isn't the same as the military, because I don't remember where I heard this, but I feel like that at some point Picard said the reason he chose Riker was because he was not afraid to contradict his captain.
Yeah, that was in the episode of the Pegasus. We were watching that the other day.
Okay, I was like, I heard this recently.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, that's literally the reason Picard chose him, and I know other first officers were the same way a lot of the time.
And
so
you're
that goes
absolutely
against that
right.
it's a military organization.
And you're absolutely right. I didn't say that he doesn't. I didn't say his job was not to question the captain.
Yeah.
Like I said, if he does, I'll give you a situation when I was in the service. We were at a change of command, and I was brand new. I was picked as what you call a drum major of a ceremony. And be quite honest, at that point in my career, I really never led a group like that on that level. I was a brand new sergeant.
Right.
But there was another guy who'd been a sergeant for a few years, and he was under my command. And they were having an issue with the flag, how the flag is supposed to be carried during a ceremony. And I didn't have an answer for him. And he knew that I could give them the correct answer, and because he knew it. So he whispered, rather than him jumping over my shoulder, he whispered what needs to be done in my ear, so I can deliver it to the people who needed to know, who were part of that ceremony. Since we're supposed to be the professionals who do this all the time. I was in the best position to deliver it. So he did that, but he did it through me. And that's basically how it's done. And in other words, if the captain, if he sits on his crank, for lack of a better term, he's gonna, if he needs to be corrected, and if he's any kind of good officer, he's gonna listen to somebody when he goes, well, sir, you're supposed to do this one, blah, 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 blah. And then he's corrected. And then he won't make that mistake, or he'll correct it in front of the troops, saying that he was wrong. But yeah, first of all, what I wanted to say before we even started this list of stuff these lists of leadership traits aren't from a military program. This is from a business.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, leadership is leadership. I mean, there's a great leadership training program in Boy Scouts that I went through that was amazing.
Exactly. And the difference between, and what I was also saying, the difference between military leadership and leadership in the civilian world are those things, that those little differences. I got a little list of stuff, what they look for in a military leader: being character over competence, confidence, not arrogance, discipline, and leadership by example is very important to me. Bearing, how you present yourself in front of the crowd, which all falls into that little gnats over a rain barrel thing I was talking about earlier. You have to be tight. You have to be beyond reproach. You have to set the example.
I tend to think that I don't think there's really, and what Veronica said, because one thing I think about Star Trek, and I think there's so many funny things in that episode where they had the war games with that little man from the race that hadn't fought a war in centuries, but everybody was scared of them because they were high peak performance. And they made a point of Picard telling the people, they said Picard objected to war games, which sounds silly to me if you're a commander of the flagship Federation. And he said Starfleet was not a military body; it was an exploratory body. Then of course there's the famous line that Pike mentioned in the movies. Remember Star Trek, Starfleet's not the military; it's a peacekeeping armada, which is one of the funniest paradoxical statements in history.
Yeah.
But I don't really think of Starfleet. There's usually not a lot of that we are focused on. We don't see a lot of so-called autocrats. Now, who I would think of autocratic leadership is the entire Klingon command structure. Because not only do you do what they tell them, but if you argue with them, they might kill you. So, we're bumping up on break, I know, but
let's pause for just a moment and take a quick break for an ad. And when we come back, I'd like to get back into that, particularly with the Klingons, because they have a very interesting command structure. So we'll be right back. Stay right there.
Look up, look down, look out. Here come the monkeys.
Mickey,
David,
Mike,
Peter.
We're talking about them in Monkeying Around. That's right. Monkeying Around has everything, including
interviews,
Episode reviews.
album discussions,
and other incredible surprises.
Monkeying Around, a podcast about the monkeys.
Now, I want to grab a comment real quick. This is from Matt Sweatman, who says, I wonder, from a military point of view, how consistent are Starfleet's rules of engagement and how they compare to the real-life military?
Thanks, Matt. I had that question also. How does Starfleet compare to real-life military? Wayne?
Oh, Wayne, you're up.
Sorry. Okay.
I ain't never served because I would have been in the brig if I had served. So.
All right. Okay. Well, surprisingly, a lot of them are, but like I said, leadership is situational.
Yeah.
You know, you have to change your leadership style. Now, as far as rules of engagement, that probably means something totally different to me than you're probably implying. Rules of engagement involve how you execute your mission against whatever adversary you're going against. Now, if you mean how we go about doing business, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that just simply doesn't exist.
Okay.
Yeah, that's being done on Star Trek, you know. So it's really hard to say. But one thing, and also I wanted to point out that at the time when I was in the military, I didn't know I was autistic. So a lot of things used to get by me, which is also a reason why I ended my career in there, because there were things I didn't understand. You have to be on the ball and concise, and being able to do the job. Like I said, set the example. And if you can't understand people, you are at a disadvantage. So now, now that I know what I know, I understand that.
Right.
But getting back to, basically, a lot of what they do is right, but a lot of people who've been writing recently, totally unrealistic. One thing, and I've been wanting to say this ever since we started talking about Strange New Worlds. In what was the first series we saw? Captain Pike.
Discovery.
He was spectacular. But when it got down to the thing when we started dealing with the Gorn, it just went. And no, and he got questioned. He had people going behind it. I mean, things like what Uhura did.
Yeah, that's probably down there a court martial in real military.
It wouldn't have been. No, don't do that. It would have been. He would have had some kind of punishment.
Yeah,
for doing that. You don't do that. That puts the whole place, in danger.
Sure.
All right. Like I said, there's a lot of stuff. Like I said, I wish that we had somebody like an officer, somebody who really is upper in the echelon, who's a great Star Trek fan, who can come on this show and do this, because they can explain a lot of things that I can't. But basically, what enlisted people are middle management, and I was in 9 years, but a lot of stuff that I didn't understand as an NCO that officers were doing that I do now.
Well, you see different types, because to what you're saying about Pike, he sometimes shows a spine of steel, sometimes. But Pike almost comes from, especially with that giant room that he's always cooking in, he comes off more like wanting to be their friend, or at least wanting to make them feel comfortable. And
which he didn't in the beginning.
Right.
You know,
And,
so I think the big difference with Pike, though, is in Discovery, that was pre-knowing what's going to happen to him.
Okay.
In Strange New Worlds, it's post knowing what's going to happen to him.
Okay.
So I think his leadership style changed.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. I know when he came onto Discovery, he was like a breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because he was very engaging, very charismatic, but also he would listen to his crew, and he was a true leader, which they hadn't had because they had Lorca in season 1. Right. And we know what happened to him. But I mean, I think it's easy to pick on the new Star Trek for things that are not in accordance with the military, because obviously there's fewer people today writing for Star Trek. You know, in the 60s, almost all those guys had served in World War II.
Good night, yes.
But also the original series, Spock hijacked the Enterprise and got off with a lecture. You know what I mean? Whereas in the real world, even if you hijack a Navy ship, even if it turns out you had a good idea and you're doing it from a nice place, they don't say, well, just don't do that again. Right? That was
it wouldn't have happened.
Right. But I mean, so Star Trek, I wouldn't say the original series has I wouldn't say that their record there is unimpeachable about military protocol. But I think the thing with Pike, and something I think about Captain Kirk, like the original Captain Kirk, William Shatner Captain Kirk, he was very much, he felt like a military man to me, especially early Captain Kirk, but he was very approachable.
Yes.
William Shatner's portrayal, he was very much with a smile and very charming. Now, he wasn't afraid to put you in your place. If you start, spewing bigotry about the first officer from your command post, he'll set you straight, right? But I think that William Shatner's Captain Kirk was a very approachable character, and I think that his charm, I think, was a big part of his command style.
Right.
Yeah. Go ahead, Wayne.
Oh, what I was going to say, you mentioned charismatic. That's a leadership style also.
Right.
But it's mostly, you mostly see it among big mass leaders or leaders of large commands.
Oh,
small. And it's influential. It's persuasive. That's basically how it's described. And there's nothing wrong with that. And people are under the misconception that that it's all autocratic. When I say autocratic, meaning questioning is at a minimum.
Yeah.
When you're in a position, question. But on the bridge, you notice the only people, the only type of interaction you see like that, what you're talking about, where you have the rebellion and stuff like that, that's between the officers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with what you're saying, because Jellicoe, as I said, is the kind of guy, I'm kind of diametrically opposed to him. I don't like people talking to me the way Jellicoe kind of talk. However, Jellicoe was brought into what could have been a second war with the Cardassians.
Right.
And I have to agree. When he said, Riker, do you have the Delta shift? Riker said, well, I was going to come talk to you about it. Even I would have known, dude, that's not what you do. You should have immediately said, we got a problem. And yeah, he might have still said, get it done. But even I have to say, Riker kind of crept up. But even Deanna, she meant well. But Deanna said, well, let's just see how it goes. And let's just give the crew time. He's like, look, I might be going to war. Picard's probably about to get killed. And he literally said, I don't have time to get to know the crew. You're the counselor. That's your job. Go get it done and then put a uniform on.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think that, especially they're going into a life in a situation that has consequences for the entire Federation. Do what the captain says. But I do feel like Jellicoe is making a mistake here when he's stepping into the situation, and rather than trying to lead the crew that exists, he's trying to change their routines, change their habits, change their shifts, change their uniforms, and then lead them into this life and death situation, right?
Yeah, I didn't say he didn't go overboard. But like when I was watching it, and really I wasn't paying attention to the fact that he was coming in and as if he was going to be the captain from that point on, was what I was thinking.
Mhm.
But and also there's a possibility that might happen
Mhm.
because nobody knew what was going on with the captain, and he was being held hostage. He might not have ever. I know, Veronica, but hold on.
No. This my brain is going somewhere else totally, and I'm trying to bring it back.
Well,
no,
say what you
don't
want to say.
this. Okay.
Okay.
So this is totally unrelated. I've been thinking about it for a while, and I was like, "Oh, this is my opportunity to bring it up." But
Is
really
it about
wasn't.
Star Trek?
It is about Star Trek.
Oh, good.
And this topic. So I was going to ask Wayne if he thought there was a particular captain or even other character that you thought exemplified military leadership style. For me personally, I feel like Sisko did the best job of that because he was very good at I don't remember what you called it, but being able to shift between the different leadership styles. He could be very charismatic and
situational. Right.
Situational. Yes. And he could be like he could get very scary of no, this is what we're doing, and everyone just realized that yep, that's what we're doing. Not going to question it.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly what I'm talking about.
Is that situational then for Sisko? Is that what you would label him?
Situational. I think a situational applies to all leaders.
Okay.
Everybody did it to a point, but everybody also had their own pocket that they slipped. That they pretty much slipped into. Like a good example is what you're talking about, like your job, Charles.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. You just can't. Forget it, and then,
Right.
and don't realize that those people have a place
Mhm.
in, they have to be able to respond to them. Like I
Right.
said, leadership is leadership.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to get the people, manipulate the people into doing a job. In other words, to carry out the mission.
Right.
You can be too much of a friend, too nice. Like Michael Burnham for a while struggled in Discovery. She was, and I'm not talking about the stuff for all the people who attacked her for being too woke and crying too much, but for a while she was trying very much to kind of be their friends and really, really understand them a lot.
Right.
And I think Saru also for a while kind of had that problem because it's so funny when you look at Saru, he always on the surface, he had everything he needed to be a good captain, but he didn't seem to know that. Which I always found very interesting.
I think Saru was a terrible captain. And I like Saru a lot, but I think Saru was too easily manipulated.
Yeah.
And you even see that way when he was an ambassador, but when he was the captain of the ship, and they're like, oh no, your home world's in danger. And he's like, oh, we have to go there. Like, no, you're on a mission. Right. Or that his very first command situation when he was the captain in season 3, when he decided to take Tilly with him to go to that mission. And then they got in trouble and they were immediately overpowered and in trouble because he didn't have a backup plan. Right. And then later he suggested, well, take Tilly on this mission. And she can't hold, she has lotion on her hands and can't hold the sword. Right. Like, and I would love it if he had these off the wall suggestions, and because he's an alien, maybe he has a different insight, but he ended up being wrong a lot. Right.
Yeah.
And so I don't think Saru was a very effective captain. In the case of Sisko, I think that he's similar to Kirk, where he's a very likable guy. Right. And he'll cook jambalaya with you and he'll hang out in Quark's bar. But I think all of us would agree, like, none of us want Sisko mad at us.
No.
Right. Because when Sisko's mad, you don't want to be that person he's mad at. You feel like you're a 12-year-old. Right. Because he would put people in their place when they need to be put in their place, whether it's even if it's Dax, who is his oldest friend. When Dax is being a smart ass and shouldn't be, and we're in a dangerous mission, he'll tell Dax, knock it off. Right. Like we're pulling it together right now.
Okay, that's the difference. He was capable enough to be able to, like I said, play around, but when it came to business, but like I said, there's all this understanding of how leadership works in the military. That's why they take the trouble to teach you leadership. They send you to NCO school. It's a constant training for your entire career.
Right.
So you know where your place is. You know not to. And like I said, and because they're aware of all the different ways to lead people and how to control people, that's why it's important to know all the leadership styles, so you can switch up to get the job done.
Right.
You know, you don't go in and explain the mission. You know, give the mission order to your crew like you did when you were talking over the specifics with the senior officers.
Right.
It's as simple as that. I mean, you talk like you go into your office, Charles, and you explain to people, all right, this, to your executive staff, okay, we got this and blah 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 blah, and then you don't expect to do the and if you're asking for opinions, you ask them. You don't
Right.
go out there and do that with your subordinate.
Right.
That's
Absolutely.
so it's a switch of leadership style. You know, it's not necessarily autocrat, but you go ahead and dish it out.
Certainly.
What you have, what has to be done. Everybody understands. It's not like you can't crack a joke with anyone,
Right. Absolutely.
or be friendly.
Mhm.
That's unless you're a douche. That's the only other way. That's but it like I said, it allows you to be flexible. And the better you are at knowledge, knowing your job, the better you are at communicating yourself across the crew. Same with Captain Kirk. Same with
Sisko?
Sisko. Same with Picard. He's a very good example. I remember when he was real, stiff
Yes.
in
Yes.
the beginning. Remember what I was talking about autocratic? He started out as an autocrat. And then all of a sudden, as the crew got to know each other, everybody started to mellow out.
Mhm.
But if you notice, once they go outside the command structure of that of the bridge, it's a totally different situation.
Mhm.
That's how leadership works.
But I think it's interesting because Jean-Luc was always still man. There was the episode. Oh my goodness, it's the one with the pen pals. The episode where Wesley crushed, where Data contacted Sajinka, the little girl on the planet that was going to blow up because it had a lithium core.
Like Kirsten Dunst.
Yeah, Kirsten Dunst. And remember,
That was Kirsten Dunst.
Yeah, that was Kirsten Dunst. Yeah.
Oh,
And
okay.
they put Wesley in charge of the planetary survey, and then one of the guys basically said, "Hey, man, I wish you had asked me before you put this crew together, because two people didn't get along on the team." And then Wesley asked him to do a scan, and the guy's like, "Hey, man, that's too much trouble. Let's not do that. You're only going to get like a 5% sensor." And so Wesley's all freaking out, and he doesn't know what to do, and he goes and he talks to was it Troy, or who's he talked to, or was it Wes or Geordi? But they basically asked him, "Does anybody ever question Captain Picard?" He says no. And they're like, because he's the captain and he doesn't let them. And so West, and I know some people hate West, but I love this because I've been there. I think we've all been here. I know, Charles, you've been a manager, Wayne, Veronica, we've all been there. Wesley goes into the room and he's gathering his breath. And he's like, and he's so worried. He goes in there, he said, "I really want you to run the survey." Guy goes, "Okay." And Wesley's like, "I'll be damned." That was it.
I've certainly been a few times in my career, so I understand.
Yeah. And I've certainly been in situations where I was having to manage people who are 20, 30 years older than I am.
Yes.
Doesn't matter. You still have to get the job done. I want to grab a few comments before we get carried away again. So Matt corrected me here. That was Nikki Cox, not Kirsten Dunst. Kirsten Dunst, you're right, was in a different episode. She
was in the one with that telepath. That
right.
Yeah.
And that also says prioritizing decorating your residence during a crisis is a bad command decision.
Who's that? Is that Jellicoe he's talking about?
I think so. With Picard's fish, probably.
Wait.
I know what I'm doing. Elaine said, "We're only 6 or 7 episodes into DS9, and I already know that I would not want to cross Sisko."
He must have been a formidable first officer.
Matt Sweatman says, "Pettiness and tyranny often go hand in hand."
Unfortunately, as we are learning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Matt Sweatman said, "Sure, the situation may be called for more autocracy, but Jellicoe's pettiness, as exemplified by how quickly he prioritized changing the ready room decor, suggests autocracy was his default."
Trust me on this. That was bad script writing.
Yeah, I do.
Now, Bill Lamont says, my dad was an Air Force Air Guard officer, eventually squadron commander. He quoted old advice, take care of your horses, then your men, then your officers, then yourself.
Wow. That's an old one for the horses to be in there.
Right.
I think what he meant, accomplishment of the mission is most important. Then you're meant.
So one thing I think I'm taking away from this, Wayne, is that what you're saying is, bottom line is, every captain at the end of the day, they're going to have to be, frankly, every captain needs somewhat of an autocrat. We would call them in there.
Right.
In them. But what we call autocrat is not what we typically think of as autocrat, because autocrat has a 100% negative connotation for a lot of
right. Unfortunately, no, all it means that he has to take charge of the group, and he's in a situation where he needs to get things done. So the questioning is at a minimum. And when you do questioning, he'll shut you down. Not because he's a bad person, but he needs to get the mission done.
I have heard people say that actually one of the toughest captains in the Star Trek franchise is Janeway.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And on my Voyager rewatch, I'm seeing that. They're like,
there's a reason.
She's also matriarchal, and she's also matriarchal and kind.
That's true. But there's also, you ever notice she's alone a lot.
True.
Because of the situation. Remember, she's out there all by herself. So she's basically, like I said, God.
Yeah.
She can't allow herself to get in a situation where her orders are questioned.
Right.
Nobody questions Janeway. If you notice that, not very little, very little, except for there's 7.
Well, yeah.
but otherwise,
and occasionally Chakotay. Yeah, occasionally they remember the writers remember who Chakotay is.
Yeah, but that's how good. And remember what I was telling you about Chakotay, Captain. Instead of, but not. At least I can't recall where Chakotay confronted the captain on the quarterdeck.
I agree.
Right. No, it'd be in private.
Yeah.
Always. That's something that I really agree with. In my job, I was what we call a service manager, basically like the number one for like 10 years. And so with the various managers I worked with, the approach that I always took was, I'll give them the benefit of my experience behind closed doors, because oftentimes, I've been doing my job for 20 years. I have more experience than a lot of the managers I've worked with. But once we're out in front of the team, what the manager says goes, right? We're executing his plan, whether I think it's right or not.
Yeah.
But now behind closed doors, I maybe I'll argue with him and tell him I think it's a bad idea, tell him why, and maybe he'll tell me to shut up and get back to work. That's happened before, right?
Exactly.
Now I think that's where Riker went wrong a lot in the Jellicoe episode.
Yeah.
Was that he made it clear, I think, to the crew that he didn't agree with Jellicoe.
That was not supposed to happen.
Right. Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Now, I think Riker certainly was within his rights and his responsibility to tell Jellicoe behind closed doors, I've served with his crew for 5 years. I think you're making a mistake here. But if Jellicoe says this is the way it goes, he should be carrying the ball, right? He should be taking that to the team. It should be a united front. You know what I mean? The crew shouldn't be wondering who they should be following and who they should be trusting. And Riker, you mentioned Picard commenting that the thing that drew Riker to him originally was that he was willing to stand up to his captain and tell him he's wrong. And that's something I really do agree with. And that's something that I really value in my current service manager, is that she's willing to tell me when she thinks it's a bad idea. Now, I don't need her telling the team meeting that's a bad idea. I need her telling me behind closed doors, and we can strategize and think about it. And maybe she's right. She's a very smart person. That's why I've got her there, right? Like, that's why I've got the leadership team that I have, is because they're people who I respect, who are very good at their jobs. And if they tell me that I'm making a mistake, I want them to tell me that, right? But when it comes out to our Friday morning meeting, when we're addressing the team and telling them the plan, I don't need them speaking up and saying, no, that's the wrong idea, right?
But also, like, in the case of Riker and Jellicoe, like Jellicoe's just like coming in here and issuing orders willy-nilly and not consulting Riker. Like, I feel like, at least in your situation, you're talking to your number one in advance of, hey, these are the plans. And Jellicoe just came in and was like, this is happening and this is happening, and I'm changing the entire structure of everything. Without talking to anyone who's actually been with this crew. And I feel like that's where his his leadership style completely and totally failed.
For those who are listening later, not watching, when Veronica just made that point, Wayne did his hands like, "Hey, what are you going to do?" Because that's the job.
I think he's certainly, especially in the situation he's within his rights. But I think you should take into consideration these 1,000 people are following him into battle, and they don't need to be questioning whether he knows what he's doing.
And I'm gonna take a leap and think that he was probably under the assumption that was going to be he was going to be captain of the Enterprise.
Oh yeah,
and that's what I took from that. That's why, other than that, if not, he kind of went overboard.
Yeah, because remember,
but I'm just looking at the situation the way the story was written, because the captain was kidnapped and he was gone, and he was probably, and he was probably working on that he might just be gone forever, and he was probably given the orders in a way that it was saying that might be your command from now on.
Well, in that episode, they said that they don't usually do the transfer ceremony the way they did for normal circumstance. So Starfleet Command was kind of like, yeah, Picard's probably going to die, because they used to do that ceremony. They even said they don't usually do such a horrible ceremony for a temporary thing. And remember, before Picard left, remember Jellicoe actually told Picard, he said, "I don't have time to get Will and all these people that, basically, I don't have time." And then he said, "With all due respect, Jean-Luc, you're probably not, the Enterprise is mine now. And let's be honest, you're probably not coming back from this mission." So,
also, I mean, Jellicoe has to consider the possibility that this mission might be the Enterprise's last mission. They're going up against the Cardassians in a very tense war-like situation, right? They're on the brink of war with this alien power. I mean, this might be the last mission of the Enterprise, right? Like, not only might the Enterprise be his,
D.
right? Like, this might be all of their last mission. Give it everything, right? But I do still think it's a mistake not to consider bringing the crew along, right? Like, I mean, sure, in the military and in Starfleet, you give an order, everyone's supposed to snap to. But I think just as human beings, or as living beings, because they're not all human beings, you want the crew to have confidence that you know what you're doing, right? And so if you're issuing orders to move this fish tank as we're flying into Cardassian space, maybe they're going to be questioning you.
Yeah.
Wayne, a quick question for you. So we're almost out of time, but a quick question. One of the things I love in the original series, especially in episodes like Balance of Terror with the Romulans, is when Kirk would go have those briefings and there would be frank discussion. Like, he was truly discussing strategy with the Romulans. And his decision to attack the Romulans was a difficult one. He listened to his people. To what Charles just said, not just Jellicoe, but a person like Jellicoe, if Jellicoe had at least come in and had a meeting with his senior officers and explained them what was going on and talked about it and kind of gave them buy-in instead of shouting orders, would that have been better? Would that have worked better?
Mass leadership style. It might. Yeah, you're probably right. But this is him. He's a person. He's a human being. It's fallible. He just that was his decision, his call. And I guess he decided he could do without all of that. He didn't want any flack. And like I said, I know it sounds ridiculous, but sometimes that's the way it comes down. That's the way it goes down.
Well, that's why we wanted to talk to you, because what I'm hearing is you're saying a couple things that making me kind of scrunch up. But you served in the military. You're a Marine. We didn't. And so we can sit back and go, that sucks. But,
yeah. I'm not going to tell you how many times that's happened to me where you go.
Like Charles said, I won't do it. But like Charles said, if it got really bad at work, I could say kiss my ass and walk out the door.
Right.
Yeah,
I can't do that in the military.
Screw you. In the military, yes, there is a way. Now there is a way that you can do it, but it's got to be. That's when it comes down. I wanted to mention there are traits and principles. That help along some of these leadership styles that can be incorporated through those traits and principles. Like, for instance, tact. Being able to say it in a way that he won't object to your suggestion. Like I said, all that falls in. Knowing your men is a good was what you're probably talking about. and looking after their welfare. Well, at the time, like I said, he was getting ready for a mission. When
Right.
you're thrown in with a brand new group of people and you're getting ready for a mission, yeah. But yeah, all the other stuff about, changing uniform or I don't even remember the fish tank part really.
Oh, I do.
But I tell you this much, yeah, that's that. Like I said, that's bad script writing in my opinion. But
Right.
but all the rest of the stuff, he was.
Yeah,
Here's
but
what wanna
I think
do
one
is-
mistake that he made was
Mhm.
that he didn't get a buy-in from Riker.
Right.
And the crew loves and trusts Riker. They've been serving under him for years. And
Right.
for the crew to see Riker walking around, not trusting the captain, not being sure, being verbally put
And-
down by the captain.
That's where Ryan screwed up.
Right. But I think that's also where Jellicoe screwed up. Because I think
Right.
if Jellicoe had brought Riker in, explained his point of view, got buy-in from Riker, and then the crew can see Riker on board with Jellicoe, then that automatically transfers the trust of Riker to Jellicoe. And
Right.
he can very quickly get people's trust.
Right,
Now,
but
maybe
the fact
Jellicoe's
that-
style is that he doesn't want everyone's trust. He wants everyone on their on edge on the mission, right?
I understand that, but first of all, if that, I understand. Yeah, he should have asked for his pay, but also, it's not Riker's place to opine about his superior officer to subordinate.
No, not at all. But I think that Riker, the fact that he's been on the ship for 5 years and has the trust and love of the crew, is an asset that Jellicoe should have taken advantage of.
And he blew that. You're correct.
Right. They both made mistakes. Jellicoe didn't give the senior officer, that's why I was talking about the briefing, or at least the meeting. Jellicoe didn't give the senior officer, especially Riker, time to, at least them, because they have to then go out and carry out the orders. Right. But at the same time, you're right, because like when Riker starts yelling at Jellicoe, like, you don't care about Picard, and he was doing it in front of people, even I'm like, dude, they ain't gonna go off, they ain't gonna go over well.
Right. Well, guys, I hate to do it, but we're like past time. It's 9:03.
Wow,
but
there's so much to talk about.
Wayne, thank you very much for joining us, for bringing your expertise.
We have like another 3 hours.
Seriously, we do. We do.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to blow it.
No,
yeah, I think this has been fantastic.
But it was a lot of stuff I could, like I said,
And we're gonna post the link to the leadership that you gave us in our group also, because this is like Ron said, we could talk another 2 hours about this.
So save some thoughts, because we can revisit the topic.
Yes, especially we didn't even talk about the Klingons.
Right. That's true. We didn't.
Okay, well, I'll do one real quick thing about Klingons.
Okay.
It was all the honor and glory, and I really didn't see anything that, except for, when they got into that position of leadership, they were like thugs. Follow me or nothing. That's autocratic, but that's like what? But also, and everybody going leader, all that.
Right.
But then even within that bunch, there were some good leaders.
True.
But
I'll say that my career would have been a lot easier if I could have just killed my boss the whole time. There's a few that I wouldn't have minded.
With that.
But Wayne, where can people find more of you on the internet?
Me, I basically just on my page on Facebook, CW Badie, as you see, and mostly I've got I got a little thing on storylink.com.
Okay.
/CW. This is my short stories. I write science fiction as a hobby, and it's fine. That's what I do.
Well, please post that to our Earth Station Trek group so people can find you.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll do that. Thank you.
And Keith, where can people find more of you?
You can find me on Facebook, primarily the ESO Network Facebook groups. And hey, folks, tell your friends to sign up. We're about to hit another mark with how many people we get. I kind of like counting. We do the dozens and then hit the hundreds and so forth. So tell your friends to sign up and come and have some good conversations with us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and please, give this video in our YouTube a like and a subscription.
Yes.
Now you can find Alan at cosmiccreative.com. He had to drop out. He's battling some allergies and things tonight. But check out Cosmic Creative, and you can check out his other podcast, Doctor Who A to Z, which is a very good Doctor Who podcast that you should be following. And Veronica, where can people find more of us?
Feltnerdy.com.
Yeah, and if you're in the Atlanta area, we'll be performing at the Puck and Fuppet Show, which is an adult performance at the Center for Puppetry Arts on November the 8th. We'll also be at Conjuration the weekend of, is it the 15th, 16th? Am I right about that?
Whatever that weekend is.
Yeah, that
Saturday and Sunday.
Right, that Saturday and Sunday. We'll be performing at Conjuration, an all ages show. And we've got some other performances lined up and even out of state coming up.
Yep.
So follow Felt Nerdy across social media or Felt Nerdy and Dirty, or go to feltnerdy.com. And where else people find us?
Monkeying Around, a podcast about the monkeys.
That's right. We've just sort of revamped Felt Nerdy, and we're putting more effort into our live YouTube show, which we've just started doing more of this past week. We have another episode coming out this coming Sunday. So follow Felt Nerdy on, I'm sorry, I follow Monkeying Around on YouTube. It's going to be a fun show. We've got a lot of stuff going into it. So follow Monkeying Around on YouTube. And do you have a closing for us this week?
Yes. Thank you to Bill. Bill says, I don't think janitorial work or nonprofits attract power-hungry leaders. I can tell you experience, they do. More than anything else.
Oh, yes, they do. Yeah, sorry.
Better believe it.
Great conversation.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Join us live on Thursday evenings here on YouTube or on our Facebook group, or you can follow us after the fact on your favorite podcast platform at Earth Station Trek. And everyone, live long and prosper.